Welcome, one and all, to the Success Curious podcast. It's your man, Andy, here, and I am relieved, grateful, delighted to have someone that I've been trying to get on my podcast for a wee while. She's had a couple of distractions, bless her, but we finally come together. Team, I'd love to introduce you to Claire Seeber. Now, she is the coach, speaker, trainer, author, founder of Eating Your Cake Too. For those of you that are watching the video, she is the successful author of the book that's just behind her head there, Less Hustle, More Happy. Wonderful bit of product placement there, Claire. Well done. Now, Claire has got a real strong focus. We've got some synergies in terms of how we both rock and roll, but Claire has got a real strong focus on helping to create and generate real success paths for emerging talent, particularly in a leadership space. She's also got a very, very strong voice within leadership for females in business, in the corporate landscape, in white collar land, emerging female leaders. She's really, really good at nurturing talent, which is something that I clearly resonate with. She's done a whole bunch of other stuff, though. I believe you've come from a HR background, if homework serves me correctly. Is that right?
Yes, don't hold it against me though.
Yes, I know. So in spite of that, she has grown herself a tremendous following of people that have gained so much value over the course of her journey with the trip that she's on now. She is a committee member of the Long Lunch Club. She has done all sorts of different things with regards to brands. She's been in white collar jobs. She's done all that sort of stuff in a boardroom perspective, and now she is unleashing her wares to the world, and she's doing a tremendous job at that. Claire, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
I am wonderful. You are not joking, Andy. Your intros are fabulous. Thank you. I feel like I just want to take that recording and just like play it to myself every morning when I wake up as a
Oh,
little pep talk.
I really don't know if you want my dodgy accent in your ears every morning, but maybe once a quarter would be sufficient. Claire, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board for the show. We do have some serious synergies in the way that we view the world and the way that we want to help the world, and particularly
Mhm.
the people that are playing in the world of business and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But for the people that don't know who you are or aren't aware of who you are, give us a bit of an MO, a bit of an elevated pitch
Mm.
as to who Claire is and what got her to this point.
Yeah, great question. Look, I always like to start with kind of not what I do because what I do is part of who I am. It's not all of who I am.
Hmm.
So I am like a deep thinking, deep feeling human. Love hard, laugh hard, believe that a good belly laugh should be part of every day. Love to travel, love adventure. My husband and I will often wake up, early on a weekend morning and just drive in a random direction,
Hmm.
see where we end up. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it tests your marriage, but nonetheless, always learning. That's a little bit about me as a human. I'm a twin. Got a twin brother. I'm 2 minutes older. I'm a fur mama. I've got a little sausage dog called Kransky, who I love dearly. And in
Nice.
terms of I'm that person who, in one moment, with my girlfriends, we'll be talking about the meaning of life and all this deep stuff. And then 30 seconds later, I'll tell a fart joke. So,
Mm-hmm.
big on heart, big on humor, big on honest conversation, human to human. And I think that that's really what's led me to do the work that I do now. As you beautifully said in my intro, I background in corporate was HR and communications. Was never that person that woke up and hated my job. Loved what I did, loved the people that I worked with. But when I really got specific about, what are the parts of my job that I enjoy, I realized I loved the coaching aspect of it, training and development, specifically around leadership. And how do we just help individuals be the best versions of themselves that they can be at work, given that we spend so much time there?
Mm.
And so that's led me essentially to start my own business, like 7 or 8 years ago now. And initially as a side hustle, went full time in 2019 and haven't looked back. So I work with organizations all over the world. helping them keep their best talent, and then basically work with individuals who will reach out to me for coaching support or to be on my programs. And I teach them the skills on how to be the best talent that every person wants on their teams. And I love it.
Oh, look, and that's really, really clear. I mean, team, obviously, we'll have all of her links in the show notes, right? But if you go and have a bit of a goosey gander at the stuff that Claire does, there's two things that just jump out at you. One, she does genuinely enjoy what she does, right? It is fairly obvious that that's the case. But two, and this is the thing that really sort of drew me to Claire, shall we say, before I sort of had a chance to get to know her, was that there's an energy and a vibe. I think that's the word for it. There's a vibe around the stuff that Claire does that is quite magnetic. It makes you want to go play. And I think it's just tremendous the way that you go about your stuff, and it really does sum up you as as the human brand of you, which I think is just tremendous. Now,
Thank you.
before we dig into a couple of things, because I want
Yeah.
to challenge you on one or two things, right? With respect to
Oh,
where current barriers are with respect to success and fulfilling potential, and maybe a couple of societal concerns and whatnot. You said the magic words "deep thinking," so God knows where this thing's going to go now. But before we crack on with a couple of things, I'd love to ask Claire Seeber, what is your definition of a successful human?
oof. That is a big question, isn't it? I, to me, it is a successful human is somebody that can wake up in the morning and go to bed at night with peace, inner peace, and
Oh,
contentment with the life they have. It's not, to me, it's not about material wealth, things you have or don't have, but it's the ability to be at peace. Like, isn't
far
that
out, man.
success at the end of the day? If you when your head hits the pillow, you are at peace. Your heart is warm enough to let you go to sleep.
No one has said that shit before.
Oh, really?
And oh man, that had a visceral impact on me. That was weird. Very, very odd. Inner peace, man. No, I don't think I've had anyone say the word peace in their
Oh,
definition over
really?
the, nearly 90 odd episodes, which is
No shit.
fairly hectic.
Mm.
Obviously, the more that I do of these things, the increasingly rare it is to find someone who says something completely left of center.
Yeah.
Um, Inner peace. So tell me, was there a particular time in your life that led you to realize that that is what success meant for you? Because you
Mhm.
started in, climbing the corporate ladder, right? That's how
Mm,
you rocked and rolled to begin with, as
mm.
most people tend to do. And was there a significant moment? I don't know if you could pinpoint it to a specific moment or a sliding door moment or a specific phase in your life that led you to realize that peace was the key for success for you.
Yeah, I think I probably can't pinpoint it to an exact. I mean, I probably could if I really sat down and dug into it, a
Mm.
specific moment. But for me, like, had you have asked me that same question, 20 years ago, Andy, I totally would have been like, oh, it's the fancy car and the fancy house and it's, having all this money and all of those things and looking great. And so, like, my world definition of what success is has seriously evolved over time because as I, like you said, climbed the corporate ladder, started earning more money, um, got all of the things that I once dreamed of because I thought that's what success was.
Mm.
I and particularly then starting my own business and earning good money, doing great work, buying a house, or, going on holidays, all these things, yet feeling so wired and exhausted and Actually, now that I'm talking out loud, I think it might have been my husband that actually made a comment to me one day, and I'll probably butcher what the exact words were, but it was somewhere along the lines of like, "Why do I get the dregs?" Like,
Mm.
like everything's given to other people through whether it's work or business or obligations or whatever it might be, and then we save the dregs, what's left, which was
Mm.
very little, for the people who we supposedly love the most and the people that we supposedly
Mm.
care about the most. And so I think for me that, um, I had all of the things on paper that apparently mean success, but I was more wired, tired, and disconnected than ever. And I think for me that really was probably the catalyst to start thinking about like what actually is success and what is it all for if your head can't hit the pillow at night and feel genuinely at peace
Mm.
and satisfied with the people in your world
Mm.
that love you and without the guilt that I was holding when I certainly wasn't doing that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think for me, that's what comes up.
No, no, no. That's super interesting, and fair play to your husband. Can we stop referring to him as your husband? What's his name?
Sean.
Sean, right? Hello, Sean. I think Sean having the ability to be able to articulate that to you without completely destroying the
Mm.
marriage, I think is win number one. Because guys, when it comes to articulating emotions, can be a little bit like blunt force trauma. Well, anybody can really, to be fair.
Yeah.
Depending on the energy you bring it with, but. Um, how did you take that initially when he jolted your train of thought around how
Mm.
you thought the world worked?
Uh, Probably got defensive to
Mm,
start. "Don't you know how hard I work?" Like, yeah, that's the point.
mm,
Um, but then probably tears and probably deep shame, to be honest, because anyone that's listening in that this is resonating with, you don't not know, right? Like
mm,
we know. We know when the people we love the most are getting the dregs. We
mm,
know. We might not be able to put the right words to it, but we know that icky feeling of not being in alignment, meaning like I'm giving everything and yet I still feel ugh. And
100%.
and I think there's a shame that comes with that because it's like I know it and yet I haven't done anything about it and now you've just called me on it and well, fuck.
No, totally, like, and I've, on a relatively regular basis,
Mm,
unfortunately, and I'm doing my best to minimize it down now, but, it happens when if, from a parenting point of view as well, right? I was
yeah.
literally just having a conversation with another lad who started his own business, about a year ago, or just under a
Mm,
year ago, and they've just had their first kid. And he was asking me questions about the parenting side of things, and he goes, "Man, like, is it right to feel bad? Is it right to feel guilty? Is it right to feel this, that, and
mhm,
the other?" And all those sorts of questions that, when you're new to the game of parenting, is very, very valid questions, right?
yeah.
And it was just fascinating how, you know, even now, with Eliza being 11 and Cal being 7, there are plenty of moments. Like next week is the second week of school holiday,
Mm,
as we record this towards the end of September. And I'm already feeling bad because I know for a fact that there's going to be days where I ain't going to be able to be dad because
mm,
I've got business to run. I've got things to do to put food on the table and blah, 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 blah. And you know
yeah.
that you're neglecting them, right?
Mm,
So it's almost the case in many instances, a case of choose your heart. But when you've got someone that is a partner in life to you who says this ain't right,
mm,
and it's really challenging not only your current status quo, but challenging your entire wiring around how the
mm,
world works, which
yeah.
is mad, right?
Mm,
Real mad. Now, I wanted to ask you though, because I believe that as we both have a focus on especially nurturing young talent as it comes through and what have you,
yeah.
um, conditioning as children, right? Our
Mhm.
conditioning as kids and how that affects how we rock and roll down a track, right? We can't help but be given the hand that we are dealt in terms of parents and stuff. And some people have amazing parents, some people have shit parents, some people have
Yeah.
no parents, a ridiculous number of variables, right? From your perspective, though, um, when you look back at your early conditioning and
Mm.
compare it to your map of the world now, what would be, if you could rewind and just adjust certain things in your conditioning as you were as a kid growing up,
Yeah.
where do you think you would make those tweaks and changes?
Yeah. Great question. I think, the first thing that comes up for me when you ask that question is so my parents owned a business for most of my and my brother's life growing up.
Mm,
They owned a big, bus and coach business here in Western Australia, and so I saw from a really young age, like, all of the good that comes with running your own business, but also all of the bad,
mm,
and particularly then running a business with your partner, so my parents ran it together. It's like you don't just shut the door, on the office at the end of the day and well, certainly they didn't shut the office on the door at the end of the day and that's it. It's like it follows you everywhere.
mm,
And so I think for me, some of the conditioning that I carried from a young age, kind of watching that were a couple of things. First, the hustle mentality without necessarily knowing why, hence my book about it, Andy, like something more happening. Um, but also, I think there was also a conditioning in me too that it has to be hard in that, like,
mm.
business can't be easy, and I feel like I should preface this by saying, like, I absolutely do not subscribe to the bullshit out there that we're seeing at the moment and the manipulative marketing around, like, 0 to multi six figures in 6 months with 1 hour a week by the
Yeah,
pool with your laptop, like, I do not subscribe to that shit at all.
good.
Like, it takes guts and grit to build something, but I do think that I carried this conditioning around almost like if it's not hurting, you're not working hard enough, and almost like sometimes it had to be unpleasant in order like, there had to be so much sacrifice, um,
Ah,
like it couldn't be enjoyable kind of thing, and so I
yeah,
think I
okay.
carried a lot of that into my work, like the
Mm,
way even in the earlier stages of my career, where it showed up for me in corporate land was like presenteeism culture. So, like the first person in the morning, last person to leave at night was the hardest worker.
mm,
And I just then also happened upon, hindsight's a valuable thing, but I also happened to work in organizations that fed off that in the
right.
earlier part of my career too. So I just like was like, "Oh, this is how the world works, right?"
Mm,
And so yeah, I think that they would certainly be things like you should enjoy what you do. It doesn't no, not everything comes easier for sure. I know that, but we should be clear on why we do what we do. And while there are hard moments, there's plenty of good ones as well, and it's okay to enjoy those.
100%, man, 100%. There's a couple of questions I got off the back of that, right? I
Mm,
think though, before I start asking them, there's a difference between seeing a problem and seeing a challenge, right? Seeing,
yeah.
and depending on what state of mind you're in, according to what it is that you're doing and how much you do genuinely love it, right?
Mm,
It's like it's the difference between having the right reasons versus having discipline, right? And if you've got the right reasons to rock and roll, then things are tough, but they're not impossible, right?
yeah.
You accept them for what they are. Whereas if you are resisting a challenge because it's a pain in the ass, then you kind of got to question whether you're on the right track in the first place,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Which is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
One word that came up that I wrote down just before as you were talking, um, that I think we don't talk enough about,
Mm,
which I'd love to get your opinion on,
mm,
is the understanding and the ability to set and articulate appropriately the importance of boundaries. in our own worlds, in our business worlds, because work-life balance for me is a bit of a crop because it's all one thing. It's all a bit of a flow of one thing. So, but at the same time, being able to honor where we are at in that, the whole being present thing that everybody bangs on about. I think there's because we struggle with that a lot of the time because we really do struggle to set boundaries in terms of what people expect from us, what we expect from them,
Mm,
and the respecting of them, of the boundaries, right? So
yeah.
talk to me about your conversations that you've had over the trip around boundary setting and whatnot, because clearly you didn't part of your old conditioning was
Mm,
you didn't have any boundaries that looked after your personal time when you were rocking and
mm,
rolling on the corporate ladder, right?
mm.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think and this I do speak a lot about this now, like, certainly, what a lack of boundaries can look like in corporate land,
Mm,
and you'll hear it given as advice even, right? With, again, the
mm,
best of intentions from people, but how it then manifests is a total lack of boundaries and then eventual resentment, and it can look like, say yes to every opportunity, take every
mm,
opportunity that comes your way, that's how you learn. And so in
mm,
corporate land, it looks like literally, a project's offered to me or a piece of work that I have no capacity for, but you just say yes because I should say yes to every opportunity. It's how I learn and grow, and it's how I'm going to get promoted and la la la. It
mm.
looks like, um, I kind of say external compliance, internal rage, where, yeah, no worry. Like I used to, it would fall out of my mouth, Andy, more times than I could count. This phrase of like, um, no worries, I'll make it work.
Mm,
No worries, I'll make it work. And I did for years, but like
mm,
at what cost? And it was at the cost essentially over time to me, my health, my hobbies, my relationships, the other parts of your life that you care about. But you get so caught up in this one part of your life that, I went through a period like, um, when I was living in Melbourne, actually, probably about 2015, 2016, 2014, 2015, I'd been moved into a really senior corporate role. I didn't feel like I was ready for it. Like, inner critic was just going wild, all of the things. And so I basically, the slave driver, the inner slave driver that's like
mm.
work harder, 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 harder. You've got to, outplay, outlast, survivor, right? Mode in order to fit in here, or in order to be seen as competent, like all of those in the inner narrative. And so, like, basically what ended up happening over a period of time was I stopped making plans for my life. So, like, I stopped hobbies. I started hanging out with, stopped making plans on weeknights to see people, exercise classes, all of the stuff, right? Because I was like, oh, you'll probably have to work.
Mm,
And so then, because I didn't make plans, I then just worked because I didn't put I didn't have a reason not to, and I also didn't have any boundaries, and then add to that this narrative that was so strong around the way you show value is by how much, like, output you can churn, essentially.
mm,
Whether it was quality, whether it was needed, whether it was a priority, like, irrelevant. It just wasn't the way I was measuring it. Um, and eventually it led to the conversation I told you I had with Sean earlier. And so I think that was a lot of that tied up together, in this big kind of pivotal moment. And so since then, so it's coming up to ten years now, I really have worked hard, focused hard around the importance of boundaries, like in every aspect of your life. Like, I'm with you. I don't necessarily believe in work life balance. I think
mm,
we don't shed our skin when we walk into the door at work and then, like, put it back on.
mm,
It should all be there to support us to thrive as
mm,
best we can. Um, but no more important do boundaries become than also when you're dealing with a lot of shit,
mm,
as you know, as we record this, it's the end of September. My my dad passed away 4 weeks ago, and we have been caring for him with terminal cancer for the last 2.5 years. And
Mm,
that has meant by choice, my choice, because again, I go back to like the why. What is it all for? And like what are the things that are actually my definition of success and what
mm,
will give me that inner peace? And I know, Andy, that I can lay my head on my pillow every night for the rest of my life, knowing that because I was able to hold boundaries in my business, which sometimes meant turning down work, it
mm,
sometimes meant, needing to manage people's expectations when I needed longer time frames on things. It also sometimes meant just like ruthlessly reprioritizing for the things that were important and probably not in line sometimes with society's definition of success. It's meant less revenue for me, but it's also meant, as I said, I can lay my head on my pillow every night for the rest of my life with absolute peace, knowing that by holding that boundary, I stayed true to what my definition of success is, which is like being there for the people that you love. And to
mm.
me, like that's boundaries in action and it's values in action. It's like how do you make decisions day to day that they're your real values.
Love it. Now you're gonna yeah, I was gonna go in one direction, but I'm gonna segue into a different direction, right? Um, typical. So one thing that I believe, that especially generations that are very much coming into the workforce now, your
Mhm,
alphas and, betas aren't a million miles away.
mhm.
Because, isn't it been interesting to see, how, the generational definitions have been getting shorter and shorter in time?
Yeah.
It's been interesting, isn't it? So
Mm,
anyway, one thing that I really do believe right now that is a huge problem in society that is obviously then percolating into the business world
mm,
is the fact that younger generations coming through they really don't have enough space and there's too much noise in the world for them to be able to form their own identity. I think there's an identity
mm,
crisis going on, right? And part of that identity crisis is understanding one's values, one's filters, right? Now, I don't want us to have a standard conversation around values, right? Because that's been done to death by God knows how many people. Um, what I would like us to do to talk about are what you observe, and we'll keep it in business land, but we can mix and match. Um, what do you feel are the biggest either misconceptions,
mm.
mistakes, or just out and out fuck ups when it comes to the narrative and the understanding of the roles that values play?
Oof. Shit, Andy. I love it. It's a big question, though. It's a big question. Uh, what do I think are the misconceptions and the bullshit and the lies around values? I mean, I think the first thing that comes up for me is like the unfiltered, unthought out things that come up for me are that I think we live in a world where people will use the phrasing around values as like something we should all as individuals, be clear on for ourselves, etc.
Mm,
But then in the same breath, people will try to dump on you the values that you should have if
mm,
you want to be successful, and I see it in like the business world all the time. I get to tap into what I was saying before about all this manipulative crap of, 0 figures to multi 6 figures. It's like in one sentence, the first sentence will be, you have everything that you need to succeed just by being who you are. But follow these 5 steps like I did to be truly successful.
Yes.
And so I do think there's like this huge there's a capitalization and a manipulation that's happening around it, which is very, if you are a young person today, like, and you are your whole life thus far has been with screens, it's been with internet, like it's been, more recent years, obviously with AI, like people are on all the time. Like you asked me that question earlier around like parental conditioning and stuff. It's
Mm.
like, and your question about parental conditioning for me in that era is so fair because like I grew up when we didn't at a time when like we didn't have the internet yet.
Yep,
For anyone
AOL,
that remembers that. Like you
ASL.
yeah, I like and now and so I still think the question around parental conditioning is super valid and will always be valid, but now it's like there's just conditioning from every single angle and app and medium that people like young kids actually cannot avoid.
Yep.
Like, and so I think I'm kind of going off way off on a tangent, but I guess like my point is with the whole values thing, it's like it's lost probably real meaning around what it actually means to have your own values. And then don't even get me started on the corporate landscape in terms of like the coffee mug values and the crap we put
Oh,
on the wall. And we say, these are our values. We have integrity, but except for the CEO who's banging the head of HR
who's
in
been
the
busted
in
at
the at the
Coldplay.
Coldplay concert. Like so I think it's really and again, you're getting my full unfiltered thoughts, but I think it's really lost its meaning a lot, and so it's almost like people don't maybe not investing in it anymore because it's like, what does it even mean and why bother?
So there's a couple of things to perhaps unpack with that. Firstly, can
You
you
think?
imagine, right? No judgment here, gang. Can you imagine being in one of those old school AOL chat rooms, asking ASL, and then getting about 15 letters? That takes a whole new meaning to the whole ASL carry on, right?
Mm,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, now when it comes to the value, I really like what you're saying there, and I love that you had a bit of a dig at the corporate landscape because it's. I think that one of the things that I find particularly frustrating is the lack of ability for businesses and its values, or a business and its values, to be able to accommodate and work in sync with the values of the individual,
Mhm,
right? Because it's impossible to just hire people that've got the same values as what your business has, right? And yet, the way in which they are taught, broadcast, and all the rest of
mm,
it is that people need to buy in to the values of the organization. And
mm,
in a number of cases, there could be a completely different set of values that could complement it tremendously in the vision for the business. But because there's a lack of accommodation for this
mm,
second set of values that the individual has, it causes problems left, right, and center, right? And
yeah,
the individual doesn't feel that they have a place in that organization because of that lack of
yeah,
brand alignment, right?
yeah,
And you can argue that that is a major contributing factor to the fact that staff turnover is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
yeah,
Now, when you observe emerging talent coming through, emerging leaders, and so on and so forth, and let's particularly stay on the leadership perspective of it, right? Because emerging leaders, you can see that they are very much aware of who they are, right? They have an understanding. They might not know it completely, but they've
mm,
got a strong sense of who they are, right? Which is what's making them stand out from the crowd as a potential leader, right? What can businesses do that can help to nurture that talent in a way that honors and respects the values of the
mm,
individual whilst maintaining the values of the organization and having that
mm,
and bringing that alignment through? Because otherwise, it's almost going to become impossible to maintain a level of stickiness in your business, right?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and I think, like, in essence, what we're talking about is, like, how do we create cultures that are genuinely built on belonging and inclusion. Meaning like we can have our organizational values that are like, as an organization, these are the beliefs and the values that we have that we'll hang our hat on, and we invite people who want to be a part of this organization to subscribe to those and agree with those. But equally as much, in order for our organizations to thrive and grow, we need to bring people into this organization and see all of them. And being able to see all of them means that we're able to know them, to understand them, to hear them, to be curious and genuinely interested in who they are and what they bring in every aspect. And so I think
Mm,
it's that, like, and that's that this is why there's huge conversations happening at the moment in the space of leadership and in the space of like just organizations generally around inclusion and belonging.
mm,
Because in order for someone to really bring their best self to work, which if you are a leader who's listening and you have got direct reports or you are responsible for a team, like your job as the leader is to get the best you can out of your people with your people in order to solve an organizational problem, which for most of them is to grow and remain competitive and innovative.
mm,
And so, like, if you can't, as the leader, be genuinely open to all facets of a person, right? Like we're all cauliflowers. There are many pieces to us,
mm,
like how can we really get the best from people if we're not actually prepared to see it all? And so I think like I guess to answer your question, like as for an emerging leader, if you really want to differentiate yourself and you really want to drive meaningful change as a leader in an organization, see all parts of the person, get curious, ask them, how do they best see themselves working? Like when they're having their best days, what are they doing? When they're having their worst days, what are they doing? What are the things that frustrate them? How can you support them to get the most out of them? And then just stop and listen.
mm.
And like those leaders, in my experience and in the work that I do, those leaders are the ones that drive truly high performing teams that actually solve outcomes for businesses and don't
Mm.
just sit in 50 fucking meetings all week chewing up resources.
Yeah, man. And you know what though? And and when we talk about inclusion,
Mm,
when we talk about inclusion in an organization, I think we've become so obsessed with the inclusion as it pertains to the labels outside of us. There is a much more fundamental inclusivity problem
mm,
around including the values and the DNA of the individual
yeah.
and how that then plugs into and complements the values of the organization, right? It doesn't matter what package it comes in.
Mm,
And the values in that and the energy and the DNA that come from that individual is the thing that you need to focus on from an inclusivity point of view, right?
yeah.
I think we've
Yeah.
become way too superficial with that. Do you reckon?
Well, I think as a society, and whether we want to admit it or not, like we fear the things we don't know. And
Mm,
so as a society, we like things to be neat and tidy. And therefore, if we can put people into boxes, whether those boxes are labels or acronyms or whatever they are,
mm,
it feels neat for us. And so then
mm,
we can tick that box and go, great, that person fits in here and I've, included them. Great. Whereas as I said before, there are many, many layers to us. And I agree with what you're saying around like how do we being truly inclusive is including the whole person and seeing the whole person for who they are. And
mm,
like for example, right, I was running a workshop a couple of weeks ago um, for a team like in the professional services industry. And we were talking about like what it means to feel included. And this woman in the workshop made a comment which has really stuck with me. And she was talking about this like she was a financial accountant, um, and had had a few cracks at making this particular organization sort of pride themselves on being innovative and being, the values are like, new ways of thinking, and we encourage disruption and all of these things, right? And this this individual had a few times made suggestions around ideas for marketing or ideas to bring new business in, etc. And the feedback or the commentary that she had received were just kind of passing comments like, you're the spreadsheet whiz, stick to that, like stick to what you know. What? Like you're the human calculator. What do you know about marketing or what do you know about
Mm,
innovation? And in that room, when she brought that up, in the next sentence, she said, I actually do. She runs a like a dance studio on the side in her life as well, and then started talking about like here's what else I do, and this is why like I the experience that I do have. Anyway, I share this to say that like no one in the room knew that about her. I
mm,
had no idea about this whole other, um, fiery, spicy Spanish dancing, school kind of teacher and essentially business owner.
mm.
They had they had just seen and boxed the number cruncher in inverted
Wow.
commas, and so I just think, I guess I share that because I think your point about um inclusion and it often people will want to just boil it down and categorize it to being, age, race, gender, disability, origin, and those
Mm,
things are critical. Like don't get me wrong, those things are super important. We need to still be focusing on those. But like we're all of those things and so much more. And so it's like,
yeah.
how do we see the whole human?
Totally, mate. It's a fascinating, it's a really fascinating topic that we could really dig into like for a long, long time,
Mm,
right? Because yeah, I believe that it's kind of weird. It's almost like a bit of a dichotomy type conversation where it's way more complex, but it's way more fundamental at the same
mm,
time,
mm,
which I think is really, really interesting. But
yeah.
before we go diving down that rabbit hole, I'm very conscious that I've gotta let you go do your thing over in Perth. It just means that we will have to have a part 2 at some point. That is gonna
Absolutely.
it is gonna have to bloody well happen now. We've kinda left everyone on a bit of a cliffhanger there. But before I let you go, Claire, before I let you go, I wanna say that this has been a wonderful conversation. Like, this is something that could go in so many different angles, in
Mm,
so many different directions. And one thing that I'm distinctly picking up, team, that I hope you guys are as well as you listening to this, is that she said the word curious, and I didn't pay her to say that. But I think that one thing that Claire is most certainly an advocate for is making sure that you are inquisitive when it comes to those around you. It's being curious without judgment. It's being open to the possibilities instead of closed to the threats
mm,
that anybody can bring. And I think that's what Claire really, really advocates for. We didn't really have a chance to go through the women in leadership, emerging female talent and whatnot as well, which I know that you advocate for tremendously. But
mm,
I will also add to that. She advocates for it in a tremendously healthy way, because you talk about the commercialization of this sort of stuff. I think there's a
mm,
massive level of commercialization and
yes.
capitalization on
Pink
that
washing.
as a
Yeah.
topic without
Mm,
question,
mm,
and an exploitation, I would suggest.
mm.
So I'd love to dig into that at some point soon. But before I let you go,
Yeah.
you are obviously, as we talked off air, you are planning and you're looking forward to planning because you've had to be very much in the moment for quite a prolonged period of time. So you've not been able to really see past the day to day,
Mhm.
week to week, very much understandably. So as you plan and you scheme and you do the things that you do, Claire Seeber, what is the one thing that you feel you need to bring into your game as you
Mm.
look towards 2026?
Oof. I think the first thing, I'm just going to go with the first thing that came into my head, which is thinking bigger again. And I say that because, as you just identified, I've come off the back of a couple of years where um, my world became very small. And even though there'd probably be people listening that might follow me online and be like, oh my God, I had no idea. She still
Mm,
showed up. And I did. I still show up and I give everything I've got. But my world internally became very, very small.
mm,
Um, and sometimes what comes with that is your dreams and your vision and your courage to take risks or stretch yourself can also become smaller, and almost like a little bit of confidence maybe goes with it too, you know?
yeah.
And so I think for me, the game I'm playing in 2026 is bold and brilliant, baby. Backing myself.
Mm. What a theme, man, for 2026. Bold and brilliant, baby. I really, really like that. And there is the title of the episode. Team, I have got no doubt in my mind whatsoever that you will be as really, really chuffed as I am that we've managed to have Claire join us on the Success Curious podcast. Claire, it's been an absolute delight. And like far from a disappointment, this has just scratched the surface what I feel would be an epic series of conversations. So I cannot thank you enough for joining me on the show.
Amazing. Thank you, Annie. I could chat to you all afternoon, so we'll definitely do it again.
Big time, man. Hey, team, make sure you listen to this a couple of times and you know for a fact that you need to be following this human on the various social platforms that she broadcasts on. Telling you, gang, she walks the talk in every which way, and it is absolutely undoubted that that is the case. But on behalf of the incredible Claire Seeber and myself, make sure that you stay safe, healthy, happy. Enjoy the rest of whatever your day holds. And we'll look forward to catching you again on the next episode of the Success Curious podcast. Take care.